Hello, Guru Nation. Welcome back to the Clinical Trials Guru. This will also be on Random Musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. I've got a CRA on, Lavi. I've known him. We met a few times, I think once so far, but he's been watching the YouTube videos for a while. Now he's a CRA. Lavi, you've got a very interesting origin story. Okay, you graduated college, and you got hired immediately by a pharma company. Is that correct?
So I may have not explained it to you all the way in detail. So I went to school and, I got my undergrads in health science. I didn't go to school specifically for this career. I mean, I didn't even know clinical research really even existed. But I was always fascinated by the idea of research. I enjoyed doing research projects, research papers, in my community health classes, etc. I actually didn't stumble across clinical research until I got a contract role at a site, actually. And I was contracting through a staffing agency, and they sent me to a site for about a few months, and that's where I actually got introduced to clinical research or clinical operations. And I got the regulatory side of things and even the industry side of things. I was interacting with monitors who would come to my site,
Right.
and so I would learn from them. And at that moment, I knew that I wanted to be in the industry opposed to being at a site level in a hospital. So that's kind of where my career kick-started. And I was fortunate enough to be able to take advantage of a couple of opportunities that was, handed to me. And that one is, specifically at the site level to begin with. So that's where I first started.
I gotcha. Okay. And so how long ago was this?
So this was in 2014 after getting my undergrads. So it's
Okay.
been 4 years now. Been in the industry, I can say. Now that wasn't my first ever, real job out of college. I was doing some administrative assistant roles here and there, but I developed administrative skills, and the CRC role is in part a lot of administrative heavy roles, tasks, and that's why I was able to get this contract role. Like, hey, they need somebody to come in and do some paperwork and interact with some of the patients, and so I had the health science background, and that's why I was able to land this role. I don't think I would have been able to land a direct role like with the site as a primary role, and that's why I was open to just short-term contracts. I was just a hungry kid out of college, like, hey, yeah, I'll take a month
Yeah.
contract. So that's kind of how it went about.
Okay. So when did you start working for the larger CRO?
So after the CRC role at the site level, I actually started working for a sponsor, medical device sponsor. And this is actually my first CRO role, and I've been here since March, so fairly new.
Oh, you're a new CRA. Okay, fairly new CRA. But you've been with a sponsor before
Right, as a CRA as
as a
well.
CRA. Okay.
Right,
So
right.
not as an in-house. You actually went to monitor sites and all that
I've done
stuff.
both. So when I was with the sponsor, I initially started off as in-house, doing a lot of the back-end regulatory work, and then I started shadowing CRAs on monitoring visits, eventually leading up to just doing monitoring visits myself. And so it's been a combination. And then the last year with the sponsor, I was doing just all around just site monitoring and site visits, and then made the transition to CRO.
And which one do you prefer better, working for the sponsor or the CRO? I know you're
I would say
new.
the CRO. CRO.
CRO?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, if you're looking to be a site monitor and travel and take that on as your primary role, then the CRO, especially the larger CROs like the one I'm working for, they're very much structured for this. So they, give you all the tools and that background structure to be, help you be successful. With sponsor, you kind of got your hands in a lot of things, and because they don't have that big of a team, they're not really structured to
Hmm.
do all that. So I found myself, being pulled in many different directions, and it was kind of harder as far as being, I would say, developing in my career, and then also being able to be successful.
What's your favorite thing about, or a couple favorite things about monitoring?
Monitoring, I mean, you get to interact with new people. You meet doctors, you meet nurses, you travel, and you become friends with them, and You interact with them, and traveling. If you enjoy traveling, which I do, then that's definitely a perk. And working from
Mm-hmm.
home office, you couldn't beat that. Not having, I live in the Bay Area, so anytime you don't have to commute, that's a good day. So I enjoy those aspects of it for sure.
How many days a month are you on site?
So we just wrapped up our SIV phase. So I'm just doing at least 2 days on site per week. So 2 visits per week. So depending on which sites I was going to, I was maybe out 3 days a week and then back in 2 days a week. So in a month, you're doing about at least 8 visits per month. So, but that's depending on the study phase and where you are. And so, like I said, we just finished our SIV phase, and now we're kind of progressing into the IMV phase. So my visits are less right now. I actually did not go anywhere last week. I only had one visit this week. So it just kind of varies.
Yeah, you seem pretty relaxed right now. So you wouldn't be able to do an interview on Skype, on site with while you're monitoring.
I could, I could, if the clinical trials guru wanted me to help out, that's something I would look into.
I think I'm officially the first and still only CRA, because I'm still a very part-time CRA, to
Right.
do a podcast while monitoring.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think it's been done before. So, yeah, I'm the
Yeah,
first.
I would have found that very much helpful, especially in the beginning when I was trying to, learn about the industry. That would have been great. I need to go look.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, the podcast was not about monitoring at all. I was just talking random stuff with somebody I was interviewing, but I just happened to have been monitoring. So I closed the door in my
Right.
room, and the site didn't bother me. So they thought I was on a conference call.
Yeah, I guess it would depend on the site staff. Some are really easygoing, be like, yeah, that's not a problem, and then some be like, So it depends on the site.
I've only had two sites. No, I've had three sites I've monitored in my career. I've been a contract CRA for 2 years now, going on 2 years, and they've all been super cool. But I gotta admit, like, I prefer the site, working at the site level, especially as a business owner and somebody growing a network of sites and then doing all the other stuff. Like,
Right.
when I monitor, I actually don't enjoy it. I enjoy networking with the staff. Like, I will waste so much time talking to the coordinators and the PIs about random stuff, but the actual SDV, SDR, like all this stuff written on the board, I do it just to do it and just to learn the process because it helps with the CRO. But hats off to you guys who do this every day. I mean, you must have some kind of enjoyment from the actual work, right? Not just meeting the staff, but the actual work. Or is it truly tedious?
No, I mean, if you're a person that's enjoys the health industry and enjoys the fact that you're working on a research study that may be a breakthrough treatment for patients, and it's rewarding at the end of the day. We're currently working on an Alzheimer's study and specifically agitation. There's nothing out currently for that treatment. So knowing that in 3 or 4 years that you may be helping develop a new
Mm,
medication that's going to help set the standard and almost be a pioneer in the future, that's rewarding, and that's something that I do enjoy.
yeah.
To your point, though, it is tedious work. Certainly not as enjoyable, probably, as managing your own site and letting all the research come to you. But I haven't gotten to that level. I think in the future as a business owner, especially now that I'm learning the industry, owning a site would probably be almost a dream come true. So CRAs, yes, it can get to you. The traveling is fun, but it's also tiresome. Writing reports, a lot of administrative back end work, so it can be tedious. You're right. But I think with the industry shifting now towards remote monitoring, especially with the revision of ICH, with the emphasis on remote monitoring, I think more of the monitoring will take place, at home, and so you're not on site as much. So the work is a little bit less for CRA. So I'm looking forward to that actually.
Yeah, I am too. And there's pros and cons to owning a site and then being a CRA as well. I mean, when I'm a CRA, I'm like not stressed at all because usually I know I brought up the example of podcasting, but I normally, when I monitor, I don't do anything else except lock myself in a room. I don't even answer calls and just do the SDR, SDV.
Yep.
If anything, I'll talk to the staff a lot, but I won't be distracted like I am at my
Right.
site where I have a million things going on and then just random people calling nonstop.
Right.
There's pros and cons. Like, there's stress in that, and then there's stress in having somebody, I guess the lead CRAs,
Hmm.
requesting things of you
Like me.
that are sometimes impossible. Like, I'm
Right.
sure you get that a lot. I've been blessed with the CROs I've worked for. They've
Right.
actually been pretty nice compared to some of the stories I've been hearing from colleagues.
Hmm.
But how does it work with you guys? Do you get top down pressure?
Yeah, so the reason I said that I prefer working in a CRO setting is because, well, large CROs like mine, they're structured very well. They have a division for everything. They have the pharmacovigilance, and they have the data monitoring team. They have the sturdy startup team. So as a CRA, your only job is to manage your sites. So you have support on the back end. You don't have to collect any kind of regulatory documents and any of that sort. Don't have to do too much data monitoring. That's even, you even get help with that.
What do you
So,
mean data like the SDV?
so yeah, so like you have a data surveillance team is what they call it. So anytime there's a visit, you have CRFs to review any kind of data to review. You have actually a team that goes in the system and reviews it and sets queries themselves on the data. I mean, as a CRA, you also do your part, but your burden of doing a lot of the back end work is removed with the support you're given with other departments. So my job, I can just solely focus on my sites, keeping them on track, keeping their paperwork, their training on track, and then also resolving any kind of issues they may have. So it makes it easy for me, to be honest. So previously, when I was with the sponsor, I was managing sites, I was doing regulatory backward, quality control, I was doing even safety stuff. So I was doing a lot. So I would say that was more challenging, and challenging to keep up. Now I'm able to set my schedule. I know when my reports are due, when my expense reports are due,
Mm.
and so it's a lot more easier to manage my own schedule and my own work actually. And especially working from home, I work whenever I want. I could be at the beach with my laptop open. I could be
Yeah.
working.
You're a full time employee?
I am a full-time employee. Yes.
Okay, so not an independent contractor. So you're not in any desires to do that. Like, how does your company? A couple of things here. So with the big CRO, I've always been curious. How does your company help you with career development and growth, or do they just try to keep you as a CRA because you're a good CRA?
So my company is actually puts a lot of emphasis on career development. They have programs. So my line managers and I, myself, we develop a plan from the beginning of the year, and part of that plan is to have growth and steadily move up. So I'm currently a CRA 2. So my goal by the next year or so would be to move into a senior CRA role, and then so forth. So my company actually has a specific program catered to all employees to actually help with career growth, and they provide you resources, a lot of training. They send you out to fly you out for training. And so I mean the first 2 months when I started this job, almost 3 months, involved just training, face-to-face training,
Wow.
training at home. So they do a lot of that. So that's why I really, when I came on as a CRO, I didn't know what to expect. So I was pleased. I was pleased to have all this attention set towards me. I had like two people assigned to me just to make sure I'm good.
Do
Instead.
you, when you started, did they have you do co-monitoring visits with a more senior
So
CRA?
the way so the way it works is that your first visit, somebody does come along with you, and they kind of observe how you do, and then based on your performance they either say, okay, you're ready to go on your own, or that here are the training gaps that you need to address, and they will help you with that. And so it's called the sign off visit. So each visit, so your SIV, your IMV, your closeouts, all of those have to be observed by a senior manager or somebody else before you can go.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How was
So
that? How was that for you?
it was actually really helpful. At first I was like, oh, they're just there to monitor me, and they're gonna just say you're not good, but they were this is what you need help with, and here you go. And this, and my manager was great, and she really identified the gaps. And that the second time around, like I had it like smooth sailing. I was like, hey, I needed that because it's different. Each company has different qualities, procedures, etc. And so I found it very helpful, to be honest.
Yeah, I remember my first monitoring visit as a contract CRA. It was unplanned, but the sponsor a day before emailed me that they would like to join me. Like, I think they were looking for me to teach them how to do that. And
Okay.
I was just thinking, okay, these guys are they're here to audit me. So I was so nervous. The first we sat down, they were really cool. They were from Korea,
Right.
really friendly. But I was still nervous. I actually started SDVing on the. I had the right site source in front of me, but I logged into the wrong EDC. So I was
Oh.
like querying all these things, and then I realized this is the wrong. This is the wrong site,
Okay. Wrong.
and
Yeah.
they're hovering over me looking at the screen, but they didn't catch it either. And I was like, oh, sorry.
Double queries, query on top of query. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was a brand new. That was the first
Yeah.
IMV for that study, so it was,
Right.
I don't do that anymore. But it was actually cool. Like I got to network with them.
Right.
Like I said, they're from the sponsor from Korea, so there's a lot of other projects coming our way now, because of that. So it's cool. So you weren't nervous either during your first,
I
or
was. No, I was very nervous. I was.
okay,
I didn't pass my first SIV because I was. I think I was nervous.
really? How did
Yeah.
that go? What
Well,
do you
it's
mean?
fine. That's expected though. It wasn't like I didn't have a lot of gaps. They were just she's like, well, I think you could do a little bit better, and I'm just gonna attend your second one. And the second one, I did like great, like I did really well, and that was like my first time ever meeting this manager as well.
Yeah.
So so it was a combination of me being a new employee, it being a first SIV, and then first time meeting this manager, and then having so much material because SIVs can be
They're all day. Yeah, they're
they're
all day.
that's one of probably the most challenging visits. So, there was a few things that I missed, but I was able to learn from it. And then since then, I've been really, able to do well. But I was nervous as heck. I'm not gonna.
What were some of the things you missed?
So there were some questions by the PI, scientific questions that they ask, especially about the previous trials, etc. And I'm new to the study, and some of those things I wasn't aware of. So it was mainly addressing some of their questions, and it wasn't like I was given the wrong information. It was more so that I wasn't aware. And then with
Mm.
eSource, our study is using 7 different vendors for eSource, and each vendor has a different function, and I had to conduct training for each vendor. So I had some confusion about which function, which are assigned to which vendor, and I missed, kind of confused 2 of them. And they have like the same acronym, IRT, ERT, and so
Ah.
so I confused the two. So, and then there were some things in the regulatory binder that I should have addressed that I didn't. So these are things that are specific to the CRO itself, and not like the actual clinical research work. It's just like I said, each company each has its own procedure. So, and then I was just able to go back and address those things based on the guidance and the feedback I got from the manager, and it was really helpful actually.
Hmm. Now, how many studies do you have?
So that's another neat thing about this company is if you're new, they're only going to put you on one study. So I'm
Okay.
only just on one study. I started off with 2, but I was just only part-time helping with the other 2. I started off on this study, and it's have about 11 sites, and it's a phase 3 study. And all my sites are based in the Western United States, so Arizona, Texas, and California. So yes, just one study at the moment, but in the future I may be crossing over to a second. But I think it becomes challenging when you're more than 2. 2 is doable. After 2, it gets a little bit confusing to go back and forth, unless you have the same sites.
Yeah, you could start mixing up the protocols.
Yeah.
Take me through, I guess, a typical week. I know they're all different, but you got to have some kind of structure.
Yeah, so usually I have my visits booked out at least 2 weeks in advance, so I know that where I'm going. Sometimes they get canceled based on regulatory
Mm.
requirements, but if I usually try to book my visits, not book them on Tuesday or on Friday because I haven't booked on a Monday. I'm sorry, Monday or Friday. If I haven't booked on a Monday and it's in Texas, I have to fly out Sunday. and the Texas flights are longer. So I try not to book on a Monday or a Friday, and so I usually do Tuesday, then I'll fly out on Monday, get to my hotel Monday night in the morning, go to the site, conduct my visit, which usually takes about average 4 to 6 hours, longer depending on any issues or anything with the site. Then come back home, and if I have a little, usually have a little bit of time to eat and check out the city if
You
needed.
do. You do have time to visit the city.
Yeah, and I do some photography, as a hobby. So I stop by, take my camera, and take some pictures. So I try to make the most of it. And then you do get perks. You get to eat, and the company covers all your expenses, your taxi, your flight, your hotel, your food. So I try to go look for a nice restaurant, have a nice meal,
Yeah.
or flying back out, and then get back to the airport and come home that same evening. So
Do they
within
give you a company credit card?
Yes, they do. Yeah, I have a
Okay.
company credit card which I expense everything to. But then if I have any cash expenses out of pocket, I can cover those too. But for this particular project, we get what's called per diem. So even though I don't spend that much money, I still get that amount for food per day. So I may not be spending that much. I might just be eating less, but they're still gonna pay me that amount.
Really?
Yeah. So it depends on the sponsor if the sponsor allows that. And then just come back home, and then if I have two visits for that week, I'll get a day in between to catch up on my reports and do some administrative in-house work, and then I have another visit. Usually, if I have two visits per week, I try to keep one local. So like if LA area from here, it's about only an hour flight.
Yeah.
So I'll just be there one day and come back the same day. So that's the typical week, but then you got to finish your reports. And sometimes I do find myself working into the weekend. I'm not gonna lie, and that's part of it. That's part of the sacrifice you have to make, especially if you're trying to move up. And my goal is ultimately to be a project manager, in which I'm stationary most of the time at home and not doing a lot of traveling. But being able to get there, you have to put in the work, and that includes a little bit of time on the weekend. So,
Yeah, as
yeah,
long whatever it takes to get the job done.
yes,
How many rounds of revisions on an average report?
just one.
One.
They try to have us where our rule is to have it in our draft within 3 days, and then finalized by 10 days. Here, I maybe had one report that required two revisions. It's just usually one revision. And that's something I pride myself into. And to all those CRAs out there that are trying to get into the industry, I would really say to really brush up on your communication skills, both written and verbal.
So important.
Yeah, it's so important because report writing is a major aspect of not just report writing, just documentation in general is a big part of this work. And so you want to make sure your writing skills are great and you review everything. So and that's what the FDA and audits. That's what they use is what you're putting on paper.
Mm-hmm.
So I do my reports, make sure they're nice and thorough, and that the manager doesn't have to have too many revisions. And then within I usually get my reports finalized within like 8 days. And so the company does monitor your metrics. How soon are you submitting your reports? When are they being finalized? And so that goes into your performance evaluation as far as your metrics and report.
Mm.
Yeah.
So they're tracking that. Have you had have you had any reviews yet? Performance reviews?
But I have been 100% compliant so far with meeting the deadline so far. It'll be at the end of the year. They go by on a yearly basis. But on a biweekly basis, when I have my one-on-ones with my manager, she will give me an update on where my reports are, if I'm, how I'm doing, type of thing. So
Now, how do you use your in-house CRA? What do they do? How do they help you?
so we don't have like an in-house CRA. We're structured a little bit differently. So we have a clinical trial lead, and then we have project specialists. So the project specialists are the ones that I go to, like, hey, I need so and so documentation. Can you check if this is on file? And they do kind of the back support for CRAs that travel. The clinical trial lead as well. She's like the person you go to and you have any questions or you escalate any issues. And so that's kind of how we're structured. And then there's like project management, etc. So we don't have any in-house CRAs, so to speak. But we do have, like I said, project specialists.
Project specialist, and they're the one. Are they the ones? A lot of a CRA's job is encouraging sites to get things done.
Hmm.
encouraging, nagging, whatever it takes, because I know you're getting the feedback from your lead, right, or whomever is requesting this of you. I'm assuming it's your lead and your PM, maybe. But the sites, they're so busy. Like, how do you have to be the one to do that, or can you have somebody else from your team like follow up with the sites on things?
So the general line of communication for us is that CRAs are in direct communication with the sites. So any kind of requests, any kind of questions, etc., has to come from the CRA. So
Okay.
the project specialist or the site managers will assist. Like, oh, hey, tell my project specialist, can you send out a mass email to all the sites regarding this update? And she'll do that on my end.
Yeah.
But as far as general line of communication, the CRAs are the ones responsible to contacting the sites, which can, like you said, which can be frustrating. But I take
Yeah.
the approach where when I go on visit, I'm like, hey, I've been there. I've been a CRC at a site level before, so I know how your job is, and I'm not here to, audit you and nag you and take you off of things. I'm here to help you and work as a team because your performance is going to reflect mine. So let's get this done. Let me know what you're struggling with. I can help you with this. And I sometimes spend time and sitting there and helping them do the training, etc. So I
Yeah.
take more of a supportive approach aside from like, hey, I'm the monitor here. You better get this done. So
I've always wondered, and with my CRO, we have one small project. We have one, two, like four sites, only one of which is active. The others are in startup phase. And I found just on the fly, out of necessity, I don't have time to bug these sites for documents, but we need it. So I've assigned each site like I don't even know what I would call them, but they're like a in-house CRA, I guess. And
mm,
I told each one, this is your site, and it's your job to get these documents. I'm the CRA, but I'm not doing that. And I don't know why more CROs don't do this because
right,
it's sort of like good cop, bad cop. Like
right,
you want your site to like the CRA,
right,
but at the same time, if you're also the one that's constantly asking them things,
right.
the the relationships becomes weird. So I'm just this is interesting for me as
Right.
I'm building out a team.
Right.
We'll see how that works.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach. And when touching back to saying when we have different departments for each function, so there's a department we have called the study startup team, and they will request a lot of the startup
Ah,
docs,
okay.
and I wouldn't have to do any of that. My job really requesting things is when the study is up and running and the site is ready to go. Uh,
Okay.
and during closeout, the IRB stuff, I don't touch any of the IRB stuff. We have a team specifically that does that for this particular project. So sites do have familiarity, like, oh, this contact person is for IRB. Oh, this contact person is for the vendors.
Yeah.
Oh, this contact person is the medical monitor. So we have like different people assigned to the study. Which, to your point, I mean, it can be like staggered. Like, oh, there's so many different point of contacts. Um, but from my experience, it's worked. It's made made my job a lot easier. So yeah.
Yeah, and a couple more questions. I know from my experiences, I was contracted with a CRO, but the sponsor for each of the three studies I was monitoring,
Mm-hmm.
or sorry, two studies I was monitoring, the two different sponsors, they requested they had to personally approve the CVs of every CRA.
Hmm.
So I don't think that's unusual, and I think that a lot of people who lie on their CVs to get hired may eventually get caught by the sponsor. And then it's even worse. I know Quintiles had this issue a couple years ago where they were just hiring tons of people. People
Right.
would fabricate things on their CV. The
Right.
sponsors audited those CRAs
Right.
and they said, no, we can't have these people on our studies. Their background checks don't check out, or
Right.
their references don't check out. So
Right.
they had mass layoffs. This was in the news like 2 years ago, I think.
Right.
So any advice for people wanting to be Lavi, people wanting to be CRAs? Like they should. I tell them all the time, don't lie on your CV. It's bad.
Right.
Embellishing is different than lying.
Correct.
Don't lie. You can stretch your skills a
Right.
little, but
Right.
don't just make up companies that don't exist. You're gonna get caught eventually.
Yeah, you're right. Most of these sponsors are very much aware of all other companies, the CROs and sponsors out there. So they've been there a long time, more than you. So it's certainly good to be honest. But with me, a lot of people have the misconception that they can jump, without having industry experience, they can go right to a CRA role. There's actually that's very rare. Most companies are not going to hire a CRA with zero experience. You may have the education, you may have a master's degree in clinical research, a program that you've done, but at the end of the day, they are looking for experience. So, uh, similar to the path that I follow, you usually start off at somewhere as a administrative assistant or like a clinical trial assistant, and then you kind of learn your way up. And as the opportunity presents itself, you take on that CRA role, and that's what I did. And so for those out there wanting to be a CRA, it's gonna probably not gonna happen if you're looking to, get your degree and come out of college and think, hey, I'm gonna go apply for a CRA role. That's unlikely. So I would say do your research, and I find myself 2, 3 years ago doing the same. Watching Dan's channel, which was extremely helpful to me in
Thank
learning
you.
industry. And I said take advantage of things like Dan's CRA Academy, because those are the things. Because Dan's been there and he's done the field work, and he can give you advice, like myself, and let you know how it is out there. So yeah, it's definitely better to get the experience and not lie on your CV, because one, you're not going to be ready. You're going to go out there not know what to do. Two, yeah, you have that chance of being caught and getting laid off, and that's going to look terrible. And three, career development, don't rush it. It's a jog. It's not a sprint. But once you get there,
Hmm.
it's rewarding. So I would say just do your research.
Last one. We will wrap up now. Risk-based monitoring.
Sure.
Okay. You're saying that you're already seeing more remote monitoring, which is another strategy. I guess a subcomponent of traditional or risk-based monitoring.
Sure.
But with risk-based monitoring and big data and analytics getting better every year, right? Especially now with more sites adopting eSource. Do you think we will need, or the industry will still have such a big demand for CRAs? Or could the industry accomplish less with more? Or is this just going to open up the floodgates for a whole bunch of new studies, and then we'll still need a whole bunch of CRAs?
So I think a combination of both. 5 years, even 3 years back, I mean, there's been a drastic change. Especially with, like I mentioned, with ICH, the new revision, with the combining traditional monitoring, remote monitoring, and risk-based, all of those. So I foresee that there still will be a need for CRAs. We have roles in house here. What they call them is the clinical monitoring associate or something like that.
Mm.
So they're also at the skill level of CRAs, but they're in house, so they do a lot of the remote monitoring.
Clinical Monitoring
So
Associate,
yeah,
CMA,
EMA.
CMA.
So I've been seeing that more often lately now, especially
Very
with my.
interesting.
So I foresee that the CRA role will still be in demand, and I think it just makes the monitoring aspect a little bit more streamlined and easier. So I do still expect the industry to grow. I think there's a lot of money being put into pharma and med device. So I don't. I think it'll just make things more streamlined and efficient for CRA. So if you're getting into the industry, it's a great time. I
Yeah.
do it. I have younger siblings and cousins that are wanting to do what I do now because they see me and what I do, and they're like, "Hey, I want to do this." I'm like, "Hey, okay, well, it's rewarding."
Yeah, I think I'm also optimistic. I think it will increase the study supply,
Right.
and but there's no doubt about it. 10 years from now, 2028, when we're doing this interview again, the role of a CRA
Right.
will
And,
be different, right?
yeah, that's true. That's true. But there's things you can't replace. I mean, it really depends on the industry as well. I mean, FDA still requires sites to have, paperwork in place. And so as a monitor and, IP, investigational product, that's, you can't, change that to be, remotely checked. You have to physically check those things. So there's
Right.
still that requirement of going on site. unless the FDA or the regulatory body really changes their standards. So I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but the future will tell itself.
All right, Lavi, I appreciate it. Are we putting? Do you want people from Guru Nation to reach out to you? Are we putting any LinkedIn links down underneath, or no?
Yeah, certainly. I'll provide my contact to you. Feel free to network with me, and if you guys have any questions, any kind of way I can give you guys any tips, I will certainly do that. Put you in touch with some of the recruiters, staffing agency recruiters that helped me in the past to get here where I am. There's certainly a lot of demand for contract roles, and don't be shy about contract roles. That's kind of your way in. You may think, oh, it's a 6-month job. Why do I need this? That's how you get it. You put that on your resume, boom, you go apply to the next spot, and you might, get a better look at yourself. So be optimistic, stay hungry, do a lot of research, watch Dan's channel, and just be open-minded.
Thank you, Lavi. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching, and we'll catch y'all later. Bye bye.